Hello everyone, I'm Sharika De Silva. On behalf of Samadhi Buddhist Foundation, I would like to welcome all of you to our month of May Clarity of Mind through Mindfulness session. Today, our topic is Kamma, and with great respect, I would like to invite Most Venerable Panadure Chandarathana Thero to take us a deep dive into this very important topic according to our Buddha's teaching. Thero Saranai Bante.
Yeah, Thero Saranai Shalika, hope you can hear me.
I can hear you, Bante.
Okay, today actually we hope to start a new series. First of all, we pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Actually, this is a kind of a comprehensive topic. So today, actually, I just want to give a brief introduction, and later, from this month onwards, I will be going through the same subject so that we can get a thorough understanding about this particular subject. Because Kamma, sometimes we, even as Buddhists, have wrong views, and therefore that is necessary to clarify. Actually, for this whole series, I am using Venerable Thaniswaro's study guide available at Insight. So that will be explained as the reference, listed as a reference, and it's a comprehensive analysis available there, and I'll be using that here and there, and again certain other additions with respect to the practice that is also will be included and will be discussed. And first of all, actually getting some understanding about what are the wrong views related to Kamma is necessary to understand, because sometimes we think that everything happens because of Kamma. Whatever pleasant, whatever painful, whatever neither pleasant nor painful. So sometimes we think everything is caused by Kamma, which is happening because of what we have done in the past. So that would be the past life, or in this present life, what we have done some time back. So this is actually a wrong view. So Pubbe Kata Hetu. So this is one of the wrong views the Buddha has denied. So sometimes even certain yogis, or sometimes even Buddhists, they seem to have this wrong view, thinking that everything happens because I have something done in the past. So this is because of my bad karma. So likewise, sometimes they refer, but it is entirely a wrong thing. And then there's another wrong view, which is called as Issara Nimmana Hetu. That means there is a mighty God, or kind of a supreme being, and that person is the one who is completely managing everything, and we are merely like puppets. And so this mighty person, supreme being, is who has done the complete creation, and he is responsible for all these pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, all these experiences. So this is another wrong view which Buddha has denied. And then another sort of another wrong view is what we call as ahetu appacchaya. So that means everything happens without a cause, without a reason. So there is no any valid condition, any valid reason for something to happen. So sometimes one could say, so not everything happens in an abrupt, random way, and there is no any kind of a relation. There is no any sort of continuation of what is coming from the past, or any result, any condition, any cause coming from the past. So that is all in the present. So all that is comes under this ahetu appacchaya, where in a way complete denial of the hetu palava. Now Buddha is actually mentioning, so this is another wrong view, because Buddha's teaching is fairly depend or based on the Hetupalawada, or what we can call as the conditioned arising. And so we can discuss maybe later on these matters. And so these three type of wrong views, so we as Buddhists, we need to understand, because sometimes we also can get into these wrong views. So first of all, before understanding our teachings or Buddha's teachings, so we basically need to understand, so what Buddha has denied, what Buddha has kept aside, and what Buddha has mentioned as wrong views. So the Pubbe Kata Hetu, that means thinking that everything is due to Kamma, or thinking everything happened because of the past actions. That is one wrong view. The other thing, that everything is happening because of someone else's, a mighty person, a supreme person's creation, his manipulation. So that is another wrong view. And the other thing is, everything happens without any reason, without any cause. So that is another wrong explanation. And then, so Buddha's teaching basically has a great significance given to Kamma. And we can discuss maybe in the future that Buddha mentioned intention as the Kamma. And so whatever intentionally we do, whatever intentionally we say, whatever intentionally we think, may have a significance, may have a repercussion, may have a consequence. So now, with respect to that, so anyway, Buddha is trying to give us kind of a guidance so that we can properly navigate in this whole life. So therefore, one important thing is that he is asking to avoid doing any unskillful deeds, and again to do the skillful deeds. So therefore, Buddha encourages for that. So it is not that he merely suggests that, he himself has done that. And on the other hand, he is assuring that it is possible to do. Akusalam bhikkhave pajahata, sakka bhikkhave akusalam pajahitum. So he assures that it is possible. So he's giving kind of a green light. He's giving kind of a, say, a positive feedback. Yes, it is possible. That's why I am telling, please don't do wrong, unskillful, unwholesome deeds. Abandon what is unskillful. It is possible to abandon what is unskillful. If it were not possible to abandon what is unskillful, I would not say to you, abandon what is unskillful. So in other words, Buddha is telling to abandon what is unskillful because it can be done. So it's a very interesting way he's putting us. So he's giving us kind of an opportunity. You all need to abandon what is unskillful, and I assure it is possible. So it's a very interesting way of giving us a positive thinking, and he has achieved that. He is quite sure about it, and now he is telling, okay, please do it. And on the other hand, kusalam bhikkhave bhaveta, sakka bhikkhave kusalam bhavetum. Now there again he is mentioning, okay, you got to do the wholesome deeds, skillful deeds, and I can assure you can do it. What is skillful, if it were not possible to develop what is skillful, I would not say to you, develop what is skillful. So that means he's telling us to do what is skillful because he is quite aware, he is quite positive, he very well know it is possible to do. So in a way, he is arousing the human capacity, because sometimes as humans, we don't understand our capacity. So as a result of that, probably we may engage with various mundane activities without knowing the true potential within us. So by these statements, we can say, so Buddha is encouraging us, Buddha is giving us a lot of energy, arousing the potential, telling that please avoid, abandon all unskillful tasks and do what is skillful task. So probably when I am telling this, you can remember there is one interesting verse coming in the Dhammapada, very popular one. Sabba papassa akaranam kusalassa upasampada sachitta pariyo dapanam etam buddhana sasana. So this is a common teaching to all the Buddhas. not unique to the Gautama Buddha, but common to all the Buddhas. Sabbha papassa akarana. So don't do any evil, not doing of any evil. Kusalastha upasampada, and performing what is skillful. Sachitta pariyodapana, cleansing of one's own mind. Etam buddhana sasana, and this is the Buddha's teaching. Now it's concisely, in a way, this Dhammapada verse represents the whole teaching. So we need to abandon what is unskillful, and we got to develop what is skillful. As a result of that, purify one's mind. So the purification of one's mind becomes one of the crucial points, because just doing what is wholesome is not enough. So the third statement is also quite necessary. So because even today we can say many people are involved with various ceremonies, various Kamma and all these things, but sometimes they forgot the importance of the mind purification, or purification of the mind. So it also may not happen immediately. You have to get into a path, get into a systematic approach, and accordingly we can do the purification of the mind. So it's a kind of a long process, but one day we need to put our hand to that. So without that, it actually we can say we are not implementing the Buddha's teaching. You can see the 3 statements: don't do what is evil, sabbha papassa akranam, and do what is skillful, kusalastha upasampada, and then sachitta pariyodapana, and you got to purify your mind, cleansing of one's own mind. So this is, in a way, concisely representing the Buddha's teaching, which is common to all the Buddhas. And on the other hand, with respect to Kamma, here we can see he is asking to abandon wrong or bad Kamma and to cultivate the good Kamma. But don't stop there. You got to cleanse your mind. Now, Dvidha Vitakka Sutta. So this is another interesting area that we need to pay attention. Now assume that you understood, okay, I got to do something good. I want to do something beneficial. I have to implement what is wholesome. And on the other hand, I need to abandon what is unwholesome. Now, this is a kind of a mental pattern or a kind of a habitual tendency that we have to develop. Because already we have developed certain harmful habitual tendencies. If we consider the anusayas, latent tendencies, so there may be fairly harmful latent tendencies already cultivated within us, within our mind. There may be certain, say, useful, beneficial tendencies also inculcated in the mind. And therefore, we need to be a little careful how we are developing a certain skill. Now, we already understood, yes, I need to develop what is skillful, how to abandon what is unskillful, how to cleanse the mind. So here we need to understand what are the ways, mechanisms, or what are the considerations I need to make in this endeavor. Now, one interesting thing, one interesting point highlighted in this Dvidha Vitakka Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya is that Yanya Deva Bhikkhave Bhikkhu Bahula Manu Vitakketi Anu Vichareti Tatha Tatha Nati Hoti Chetaso. This is a very, very interesting statement made by the Buddha. You can say it's a kind of a psychological statement where whatever a performance, whatever kind of an activity, or whatever kind of a thought process, if we are again and again pondering, again and again planting in the mind, so that becomes the inclination of his awareness. So your mind is not that someone else's pasture or someone else's kingdom, but your own habitual tendencies kingdom, we can say. So how the mind is working is completely dependent on our habitual tendencies in that sense. What have we cultivated? What have we cultivated in our mind? So what are we currently cultivating in our mind? So what are the tendencies that we are developing in our mind? So are we constantly thinking, say for example, in sensuality, maybe lustful thoughts, sensual desires again and again? So if we are purposely at the beginning thought like that, but later it become a habit, and now automatically mind thinks about it. Now you don't need to do your part, but mind takes care of doing the same routine. You know, it is very much like an old bullet car. Uh, so assume that there's a ox attached to a cart, and some person who is using that cart to go from one end to the another end again and again for several months. Now, once this person get into the cart, even if he sleeps, so the bull, the ox, will go to the same place because it is now kind of a routine job. So the ox know how to go, but it's a kind of a routine. So same track is going again and again on the many days. So it has become a habit in him, sort of a pattern inculcated. Now, even without the owner, the cart would be dragged by the ox on the same path. So same thing happen in our mind. So if we are doing some activity in our mind again and again, if we are thinking a particular incident again and again in our mind, so even though you don't even want to think about it later, if you thought about it a long time again and again, so the natural tendency is to think about it. So that means we have to be very careful what are we planting in the mind? So what are the tendencies that we are going to develop in our mind? And on the other hand, say if we are developing kind of a malevolence or kind of an anger in the mind, or even harmfulness, thinking something harmful, maybe envious to another person. So again and again, if we are thinking several days about it, then actually it becomes kind of a strong habit in the mind. Now, even without your participation, mind continues to think like that. So now, even through science, they have understood about something called DMN, default mode network in the brain. So whenever mind is idling, the brain is not much involved with the focused or directed task. It gets into this conceptual proliferation. And that conceptual proliferation is largely dependent on these habits. What were we thinking purposely? And it has become now strongly engraved to the mind. And as a result of that, thinking it again and again, again and again in the same mind. So you can see it's a very harmful situation. So what are we thinking? So we have to be very careful. So that is why the purification of the mind, cultivating the mind or developing the mind, the bhavana, the meditation, mindfulness practice becomes so very important, because that is the area that we are trying to very much understand what's really going on. Otherwise, we are like puppets. We don't know what is really going on. The various different kinds of defilements are giving us orders, and we simply act according to them. And we don't know what is useful, what is harmful, what is beneficial. We don't know. Simply, we are victimized to those patterns. Now, here, same rule applies for the wholesome deeds as well, wholesome way of thinking. Now, suppose if we are developing certain kind of wholesome thought pattern, say you are practicing Buddha Anusati, again and again you are reflecting the Buddha's qualities. Now, if that is the habit that you are developing in your mind, so that is the type of object that mind is looking forward, again and again attending. So it can become a wholesome way of keeping the mind. If you are developing loving kindness, it can also become a kind of a habit in the mind. So that is the type, that is the side, the tendency being developed in the mind. So that's why, in a way, these kinds of guardian meditation would be useful, so that mind being occupied with something wholesome. And even without your intervention, now mind is going through the same routine, but fortunately that routine is something useful, something beneficial, not harmful. Later, through mindfulness practice, actually we can recognize all these patterns and do proper say advancement or proper development in the mind. So till that, at least if you are developing certain harmless, beneficial, useful, wholesome type of mental pattern, habit, that would be very useful. Because now we are talking on Kamma, because all these are actions in a way. So what we are developing in the mind, what we are habituated in the mind, so those mental processes, mental patterns are actually governing the mind, and they are the ones actually instructing our words, instructing our deeds. So they become the actions, either through bodily actions, either through verbal actions, or mental actions. We are accumulating Kamma. Now, then we can get into something more. And here, sometimes Buddha used to mention, and I mean, many others are also mentioning about this, the advice to the Kalamas. And there Buddha mentioned, okay, you got to know for yourself. When you know for yourself that these qualities are unskillful, these qualities are blameworthy, these qualities are criticized by the wise, these qualities, when adopted and carried out, lead to harm and to suffering, then you should abandon them. So basically, we also have to have some amount of intellect, some amount of wisdom to recognize what is wholesome, what is unwholesome. So in a way, Buddha's teaching helps us to give a proper understanding, because we ourselves sometimes difficult to recognize what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, because certain religions explanations could be different. In one particular religion, sometimes what is wholesome is quite different from another religion's what is wholesome. But here Buddha is giving a kind of a responsibility to the readers, to the audience. Okay, you also have to have your own common sense. You also have to use your intellect to recognize what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, what is harmless, what is harmful, and what is harmless. So in a way, we also have to be responsible how we are selecting these wholesome and unwholesome activities. And then another very interesting sutta we can come across again in Majjhima Nikaya, that is called Ambalattika Rahulowada Sutta, where Buddha always emphasizing to scrutinize, to reflect before you do something. Now, this is actually the mindfulness practice. So typically what happens is, when something is going on, we impulsively react. So that is the typical approach that we all have. Impulsive reaction. So impulsive reactions are greatly influenced by the habits, latent tendencies. But if we are developing mindfulness, so the advantage is, so we can apply little break. So you are able to step back and watch. There's an ongoing monitoring process continues. So as a result of that, you have some capacity to reflect. So this ability to reflect, the necessity to reflect is highlighted in the sutta. But in order to implement that, you need at least some amount of mindfulness. Otherwise, immediate reaction is the kind of compulsive or impulsive nature what we have. So to have a kind of a calmness in the mind, to have some awareness in the mind, to be in the present moment, have some body awareness, have some self-awareness, becomes very, very important. Because otherwise we can't recognize what is really going on. Immediately a thought comes, immediately you implemented that. later, after things have gone wrong, you may be crying, you may be, regretting about what has happened. So before doing something, so Buddha mentioned, okay, you got to reflect. Whenever you want to perform a bodily act, you should reflect on it. This bodily act I want to perform, would it lead to self-affliction, to the affliction of others, or to both? Is it an unskillful bodily act with painful consequences, painful results? So if you do this kind of scrutinization, reflection, and if the answer is like, yes, it's going to be harmful, it's going to be harmful to me, it's going to be harmful to the others, it's going to be harmful to both, then I should not do it. So this is a kind of a bodily act. Now, say, for example, there's a serpent, a snake, and maybe it's going on its own way, but we have seen it. A thought may have happened to the mind, okay, I got to kill it. Now, on such occasion, immediately, so if there is no any mindfulness, probably I would take a stick and smash and then kill. Maybe later I understood, okay, it was minding its own business. Why did I do that? But if you do this mindfulness practice, and again, this reflection, there could be a possibility, okay, you could let it go because it is not on your way and it is minding its own business. So why should I interrupt it? Why should I kill it? Or maybe something valuable is available and there is no one close by and you got a thought to steal it. So on such occasion, rather than immediately compulsively doing it, so if I have a kind of a reflection, if I have the capacity to reflect, is it something wholesome? Is it something useful? Is it going to be really beneficial? So likewise, if I can do a kind of a reflection, then there's a possibility of refraining from that. There may be a possibility of getting into a kind of sexual misconduct. There may be an invitation also coming. By that time, if I have the capacity to reflect, is it going to be useful? Is it going to be really beneficial? Or is it having consequences, bad consequences? Is it going to be a kind of wrong activity, unwholesome activity, which ultimately giving a lot of bad reputation, losing of self-confidence, and wise people may refute it. So all these things, if I can have a little bit of a reflection, then I can avoid myself. So this little time that we have to do this reflection is very dependent on the mindfulness practice. So the mindfulness practice give us that break, give us that passage, give us that distance, so that when a thought happens, so rather than immediately, impulsively reacting to it, okay, I have a little time to reflect about it. Now here, Buddha implements it to the three stages, actually three time intervals. Before you perform the act, you got to reflect. Now, if you get the kind of a positive answer, yes, it is beneficial, it is not harmful, it's beneficial to me, it is beneficial to the others. So you get a kind of a positive response to the reflection. Then assume that we are continuing the task. So, but Buddha says, while performing the bodily act, there also you got to reflect. It is not that only before you implement it, even while implementing the task, Buddha is asking, okay, you got to reflect. Even while implementing that, if you understood, okay, even though I thought it is useful, now I understand it is not useful. Even though I thought it is harmless, Now I understand it is harmful. Even though I thought it is the best way of doing it, now I understand it is not the best way of doing it. So likewise, even while performing the task, there may be a better understanding, because now only you are implementing it, now only you are tasting it, practically involving in it. So you may have a better opportunity to get a thorough understanding about it, a better perspective about it. So therefore, Buddha's advice, even while implementing, you got to reflect, gives another opportunity for us to avoid bad activities. So while I am engaged with something, while I'm continuing with that, if this reflection giving us a negative feedback, then I got to stop it. I need to stop it, abandon it. Now, the third level, having performed a bodily act. Now here Buddha is telling, okay, now you have completed. So once the task is completed, you need to do another postmortem. You need to do a kind of a reflection. Have I done that properly? Is it really useful? I thought it is useful, that's why I did it. Are there better results? Are there the benefits? Or someone or myself was harmed by this performance, harmed by this particular activity. So if my reflection gives me a kind of a answer, yes, it was harmful. It has harmed another person. The way I implemented it is not the proper way of doing it. Then I need to make a kind of a corrective measure. I should not do it in the future the same way now I have done. Because the way I did it is not the way of doing it. It is harmful. So likewise, at these three levels, Buddha is expanding it to the bodily activities, verbal activities, and the mental activities. Rahul, all the Brahmins and all the contemplatives in the course of the past, they purified themselves using the same criteria, using the same methodology. All the Brahmins, all the contemplatives in the present, they would purify themselves using the same methodology. Whoever in the future, if they want to purify themselves, they would do the purification using the same methodology. So Rahula, you should train yourself. I will purify my bodily acts. I will purify my verbal acts. I will purify my mental acts through repeated reflection. That is how you should train yourself. Paccavekkittva kaya kammang parisodesam. Paccavekkittva vachi kammang parisodesam. Paccavekkittva mano kammang parisodesam. Desami. Evam hivo Rahula sikhitabba. Now Buddha is advising to Venerable Rahula, to his own son. So you can see as a father, as a teacher, so how wisely he is trying to put us on the correct track so that we are not accumulating wrong karma, but only doing the correct karma, only involving with the correct tasks. Now, because this kind of a reflection may be very, very useful, because still our minds are occupied with various unwholesome roots. So these unwholesome roots are playing a significant role in the mind. So what is unskillful and what are the roots of unskillful things? So this is again explained in another sutta, what we call as a Sammaditthi Sutta, again available in Majjhima Nikaya. So what is unskillful? A little bit of, say, very easy to understand list is there. Taking life is unskillful, taking what is not given is unskillful, sexual misconduct is unskillful, lying, abusive speech, divisive speech, idle chatter, covetousness, malevolence, wrong views. So these are the 10 unskillful deeds typically mentioned. So from this account, we can get a kind of an understanding, okay, what is unskillful? So these are very common things, all are very well aware of them. And here, again, the next question is, what are the roots of unskillful things? So they are the lobha dosa moha. Katanchauso akusala moolam. Lobo akusala moolam, doso akusala moolam, moho akusala moolam. Now they are the roots. So till we have these roots operative, so we are in a risk, we are running a risk. Because we don't know properly how these roots are influencing the mind. So there are many situations they are operating, and as a result of that, mind become colored, conditioned, and get into a wrong track. So if we are not reflecting immediately, we are acting, reacting, and ultimately the wrong, bad karma will be accumulated. So you can see, so there's a fair depth into this subject. So the akusala moolas are in a way operative within our minds. So we need to humbly accept that. Acknowledge, okay, right now there's a latent tendency, right now there are certain vicious roots already available underneath the carpet, underneath the mind. So I have to be very careful. Am I currently operating based on those unwholesome roots? The way I perform a particular bodily task, is it influenced by these unwholesome roots? When I'm talking to someone, is this speech operative because of the unwholesome roots? When there's a kind of a thought going on in the mind, is there an influence coming from these unwholesome roots? So if we can reflect, so that is in a way kind of a deep vipassana, we can say. That is where we are understanding a little bit of yoniso manasikara, using yoniso manasikara, so that rather than simply implementing or victimizing to these thoughts, so it's a matter of little investigating. When a thought is arising, so you do a little bit of a investigation. So is it really a wholesome thought or an unwholesome thought? Now that is an interesting task, kind of an exercise Buddha himself did before he became fully enlightened. So that is also explained in the Dvidha Vitakka Sutta we just discussed. So there Buddha mentioned Dvidha Kattva Vitakkam Viharisami. So he has divided the thoughts into two groups, wholesome group and the unwholesome group. So when thoughts are arising, so first what he do is a kind of a labeling. Okay, this is a wholesome thought. Okay, this is an unwholesome thought. This is an wholesome thought. So likewise, so he was able to categorize. And again, when he encountered an unwholesome thought, so he understood, okay, this is an unwholesome thought. So it could be harmful to me. It could be harmful to another if I am going to implement it. So that reflection we just discussed. So same thing he has done. And if it is a wholesome thought, so there Buddha mentioned, okay, if I'm implementing a wholesome thought, okay, there won't be a big problem. Rather, it could be beneficial. Beneficial to me, beneficial to another. So probably I'm implementing it. So he did that reflection. And even when he's implementing, he has done a second scrutinization. Yes, now the mind is occupied with wholesome thoughts. If I am continuing it for a long, long time, I feel tired. So that is a very interesting finding that he is revealing in the Dvidha Vitakka Sutta. Even a wholesome thought, again and again, occupied in the mind. So he says, I feel tired in the body. So when the body is tired, so the concentration become far away, very difficult. So what I did, so I has even stopped thinking this unwholesome thought. Now I try to keep the mind very quiet, very calm, very relaxed. It's very much like protecting the energy. So you are running in the energy serving mode, very much like that. Because you understood, okay, mental energy is something that I need to protect, I need to relax. So it may develop, it may it may be harnessed. Only the mind is calm, relaxed, free from conceptual preparation. So he tried to maintain that. Any particular samadhi, a type of concentration which is free from vitakka and vichara, applied mind and sustained mind. So that kind of samadhi, which is free from vitakka and vichara, would be more sublime. So therefore, Buddha, in a way, giving us directions how to manage our thoughts, how to manage our deeds, how to manage our words. So again, what is skillful? So abstaining from taking life, abstaining from taking what is not given, abstaining from sexual misconduct, abstaining from lying, abusive speech, divisive tale-bearing, abstaining from idle chatter, lack of covetousness, lack of malevolence, and the right views. And these are the skillful things. And again, Venerable Sariputta explained in this Sammaditi Sutta, what are the roots of skillful things? So that is alobha, adosa, amoha. Alobho kusala moolang, adoso kusala moolang, amoho kusala moolang. So they are the kusala moola, the roots of skillful things. So we can say whenever a thought is available, if we can recognize either this is wholesome or unwholesome, so that means we have kind of a capacity to step back and watch it, step back and investigate it, so that we can recognize whether I'm going to implement it, whether it is a harmful thought or whether it is it's a harmless thought. Actually, when we are getting to more deeper vipassana practice, you may have another way of looking at it. But as an introduction today, so as a general practice, so this is something that we all can occupy or we all can implement. So if we have a fair amount of mindfulness, we would be in a better position to implement it. But if we are unmindful, then actually we are running a risk. And on the other hand, the sila also plays a very important role, because still assume that we don't have any samadhi, we don't have much of wisdom. But if we are trying to maintain proper sila, so sila is acting as a kind of a fence to ourselves, as a protective shield to ourselves. If we are somewhat trying to maintain sila, so the precepts, what Buddha is recommending, actually giving us a kind of a protection, giving us kind of a safety. Because the thoughts may happen to kill, thoughts may happen to steal, thoughts may happen to involve in sexual misconduct, thoughts may happen to lie, etc., etc. But if we are concerned about the sila, so that since we have great respect, probably we can avoid implementing these thoughts, because I am trying to adhere myself to the sila. As much as possible, I am trying to observe the sila, maintain my sila properly. So therefore, you can see the whole framework that Buddha has laid down is giving us a better opportunity to involve with the proper activities or wholesome activities, and to avoid, abandon unwholesome activities. And we'll see some other aspects of Kamma in the future sessions. And as I said, I have used study guide by Thanissaro Bhikkhu, available in Access to Insight. So if you are interested, you can further refer it. And with that, I'd like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Now I can start the guided sitting, so we all can participate in a few minutes of mindful sitting. So you can sit in a comfortable position. Take a deep breath, hold it for a while, and slowly release. Relax yourself. You can gently close your eyes, adjust your posture so that you are sitting in a comfortable way. Keep your head straight, neck straight, shoulders in a relaxed position. Arms may be resting on your lap and keeping the body straight. Again, we can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, slowly release. Relax yourself. Actually, we are going to enjoy the present moment. And we are using this body itself as a refuge, as an anchor to the wandering mind. So if there are any thoughts happening with respect to the past, don't encourage them. Slowly bring your attention back to the body. If there are thoughts happening with respect to the future, again, don't encourage them. If there are any future plans, just postpone them and bring your attention back to this ordinary bodily experience. So kind of giving some prominence to this bodily experience, to this very ordinary bodily experience. Again, you can take a deep breath, hold it for a while, slowly release. See whether you can recognize these subtle sensations. Eyes are gently closed, and probably there may be a subtle sensation at your eyelids. Lips are gently touching. There are again a soft sensation between lips. And jaws are not tightly coupled. They are released, relaxed. And keep the tongue at its root. And overall, there is no any tension in your face. You are not thinking any particular problem, so there can't be any wrinkles on your forehead. So if your mind is relaxed, joyful, it may even represent in your face. So try to enjoy the present moment. Don't take it too serious. It's a kind of an enjoyment. It's a kind of an awakening to the present moment. And we are ready to accept whatever happens. So we are not having any kind of preferences or any kind of restrictions. Whatever happens, we are fully aware. And we are happily aware, joyfully aware. And even if wandering happens, we can simply acknowledge it, forgive ourselves, come back to the present moment, and again start enjoying it. Head straight, neck straight, shoulders in a relaxed position. Arms may be resting. And again, once we put our attention onto the body, probably you can recognize how clothes are touching the body. Here and there are some tightness, some rubbing sensations. probably a little bit of discomfort or maybe comforted feeling. Here and there, clothes are touching the body. Check whether you can recognize that. Take a deep breath, hold it for a while, slowly release. As we further move down, probably you can recognize heart vibration or even rising and falling of the abdomen. As we breathing in, the abdomen comes forward, rising. As we breathe out, it's going back, falling. So you can allow this process to happen naturally and just be aware of this whole process. Rising, falling. And try to observe it with joy. And if you are familiar with Anapanasati, you can shift your attention to the nostril and be aware of in-breath and out-breath. But if you like to continue rising and falling, you can keep your attention at the abdomen and continue with rising and falling. And once you are confident, you can carefully investigate this whole process. What are the differences between rising and falling? How rising begins, how it comes to the middle, how it ends. What happens just before falling, and how falling begins, middle, end. What happens just before next rising. So we are closely examining while keeping the mind very quiet, free from inner chatter. We are paying a careful attention to each rising, to each falling, or to each in-breath, to each out-breath. Select only one, either rising and falling or mindfulness on breathing. But the technique is very similar, approach is very similar. So once the mindfulness is established, try to carefully investigate. And once you are confident, you can continue your typical practice. Maybe it is Anapanasati, maybe rising and falling, maybe elements meditation, Vedanupasana, whatever it is, you can continue. Okay, I think we can wind up the guided sitting session here. And if you have any questions related to your practice or related to today's topic, Kamma, now you can ask those questions.
Yeah, you can raise your hand or you can send it through chat as well. Thank you. Bhante, can I ask you the question until someone asks question?
Yeah.
Regarding the first wrong way, right? So basically, like, from our childhood, when we go to, Dhamma school, that is always that we, heard from the monks as well as like from our parents and, even the like, people around us. If something bad, especially like not a good thing happened, when something bad happened, they always contribute to the, it's our past life, we have done something wrong. And sometimes I actually even right now, I feel the same way because some people like really nice people, very good people, they don't harm anyone, they don't do any bad, things for others, but they face really difficult and very sorrowful situations in life. So
Yes.
isn't that like it's our karma we have done our past lives that contributing to that? It's always it's back of my mind because you don't do anything bad and to harm anybody, like then it's like where it's like why I have to face that, why that person is facing that situation. We feel like
Yeah.
it's not fair. Sometimes a lot of people say like a lot of good people die soon. The people who do all the bad karma, bad deeds, they live longer. So this is something like people say all the time. So can you please clarify that?
Yeah, actually, this will be discussed in the future.
Okay.
So today I didn't go to so details of all this. Actually, this subject of Kamma is a very vast one, and again, our ability to verify it also very limited. And on the other hand, what are the activities or karmic influences available in us in the line? It's also very unknown to us. Now, as you said, when someone is performing a lot of unwholesome deeds, but still why he may get in all the, the best, whatever the luxuries and all the family situations and all these things, even though he is continuing an unwholesome type of way of life. On the other hand, when someone is really virtuous and trying to develop samadhi or whatever, it is still many obstacles are coming. Why it is happening? So all these things are very common questions. Thing is, we don't know really what is lined up. So what are the merits that we all have? So what are the real great wholesome deeds that we have done? So currently we may be reaping those results. Whatever the great merits that we have done in the past. So even though currently a person is doing various unwholesome deeds, still those very powerful wholesome deeds in the past, what they have done, still they are sort of bearing fruits. So these actually are explained in the Mahakamma Vibhanga Sutta. So typically we can say a person is going through a lot of difficulties because of bad karma. So that is one explanation available in the Chula Kamma Vibhanga Sutta. And on the other hand, when it comes to the Mahakamma Vibhanga Sutta, Buddha give another perspective. Yes, if someone is going through some difficult time, it could be due to past karma. And on the other hand, if one is continuing say luxurious kind of life, but still involving with a lot of unwholesome deeds, again it can be due to certain impacts coming from the past karma, because there may be some accumulated powerful past merits, past karma available, and they are reaping the merits, they are reaping the fruits. As a result of that, the present unwholesome karma doesn't have the capacity to give fruits right now. It's very much like, say, you are planting a seed on a kind of a field. So it is not merely the seed itself is responsible for whole this process of plantation or germination, but various other conditions also apply. Maybe the moisture, maybe the fertilizer, maybe the sunshine, and all these things are also coming to the picture, and then only it may bear fruits. So therefore, we can consider those things either into the pleasant or the wholesome side as well as to the unwholesome side. If someone is continuing one's life properly and continuing with a lot of good activities or good results, so that is also we can attribute to the karma, because he has done something good. Currently also is doing something good, so he is reaping the benefits of that. So that is the easy to understand approach. On the other hand, currently someone is doing something unwholesome but reaping something good results, that also can have a certain impact coming from the past powerful wholesome karma. So, but anyway, on the other hand, there's another perspective Buddha gives us in the Lonapala Sutta. So what would be the proper approach? So even any of us are going through something kind of a spiritual life, something that we are, as good human beings, what we are trying to do. So there Buddha mentioned, okay, you got to improve your wholesome power. You got to improve your capacity of wholesomeness so that it become more and more the governing factor. It has the more powerful capacity in your life. So in such situation, even though you do something bad, so it doesn't have great impact, because the influence of the great karma, the good karma, is so powerful. So the simile given is very interesting. So he says, if you take a little bit of salt and put it into a cup of water, so it becomes really salty. But if you put the same amount of salt into a Ganges, into a large river, so it is almost unnoticeable, because the vastness of the water is very high. So similarly, Buddha mentioned, so if your wholesome side is very, very strong and with large capacity, so the unwholesome activities give very minor results or minor impact, because comparatively your wholesome side is very strong. So that's why the wholesome side is something that we have to improve. So it is not only, the typical bodily activities, verbal activities. So the mindfulness practice, meditation, vipassana practice, they are in a way the very powerful wholesome activities what we do. Actually, probably we can discuss that kind of a criteria that Buddha has given, the kind of a categorization of how this wholesomeness is improving step by step, depending on the different kinds of activities. Okay, this kind of activity and another kind of activity. So when we are comparing which one is bearing more fruits or bearing more wholesomeness. So likewise, some certain amount of categorization is also given in certain suttas like Velama Sutta. So some information is further available. We'll try to discuss them further in detail with those facts in the future sessions.
Thank you, Bhante, Thero and Sangnai. We have two written questions. One is, how do you practice mindfulness while talking?
While talking?
Yes.
Yeah. So actually at the beginning, it is very difficult, because that's why we are trying to encourage silent practice, because talking is something causing a lot of our mental energy to exhaust, to lose. And if you engage with something completely idle chattering or, kind of malicious speech, so then definitely your internal structure, internal mental health become really deteriorated. So talking is, in that sense, a kind of bad companion. But later, as you are developing mindfulness and you become more and more established in it, so even while talking, you can maintain a very clear mind. It is not that your mind is jumping from this to that, and this information to that information, and the person that you are talking with, and all the past deeds and all these things. So rather, the mind remains calm even while talking. So that capacity has to gradually develop. So we can't have that immediately. So that's why, even though Buddha talked a lot, so as the teacher, so his mind was completely pure and clear, and he has the capacity to talk very, more than us. So he has the capacity to talk very many, even many words within a short time. So his speed of talking is very high when compared to a typical person, because its mind's capacity, the efficiency is very high, but still the mind is kept silent in a way. So inner chatter is not available. Conceptual proliferation is not available. Fabrications, fantasizing, and all those kinds of things are not available. So while keeping the mind in a very calm, steady base, still you can do talking. So therefore, one of the difficult tasks to be mindful is, in a way, the talking. Because sometimes the subject that we are talking and the person to whom that we are talking can be a distraction. So as a result of that, it would be difficult to maintain mindfulness while talking. But as we develop, so those capacities are also coming to the picture, and you would be able to maintain kind of calmness in the mind. You'd be able to maintain steady mind, even though the other person's reactions and other person's speech become even abusive, still you can maintain yourself. So those are kind of certain spiritual qualities that one needs to develop. Then only we can say, okay, you are now capable of being mindful while talking to the full capacity.
Thank you, Bhante. Basically, just to adding a simple question on top of that. So if we want to practice like a mindfulness while talking, so that, rather than like talking so fast, like, just as a beginner, so they can start talking, slowly, and then you can really pay more attention to it. At the same time, it helps, like, if there's something, you can like modulate your language, when you talk like, slowly.
Definitely, you are correct. That's why actually even today into that Ambalattika Rahulovada Sutta, so Buddha say, while maintaining kind of a reflection, you do the talking. So before you talk, you maintain kind of a reflection, so that what I'm going to tell, what I'm going to speak is useful. Then you can start talking. And while talking also, you need to be a little aware. So the way I am talking, is it correct? The content what I'm talking is also, is it correct? Is it harmless? Is it beneficial? Or am I getting to a wrong tone, and am I getting to a abusive type of speech? So kind of while continuing with the speech, probably you can do a kind of a monitoring activity. So that is actually a very interesting result of mindfulness practice, where kind of a monitoring process, ongoing monitoring process starts to available to the practitioner. So typically, such is not available. You are simply ignorant, and impulsively we are reacting. But with the practice, so we are developing another capacity in the mind. Okay, kind of a separate side activity, a separate thread is available, which is always monitoring ourselves. So kind of an ongoing process. That means while mindfulness is available within the mindful space, we are talking. So the mindfulness appear like a kind of a supervisor acting in the mind. So under its supervision, now I am talking, something like that. So very interesting, actually. The human mind is in a way very marvelous thing. So all these capacities are available. So that's why Buddha is giving a lot of encouragement to develop those. So even today that what we have discussed as the second one. So kusalam bhikkave bhaveta, sakka bhikkave kusalam bhavetu. So all these different capacities Buddha is encouraging us to develop, and he says, yes, you can do it. So he's giving the assurance, you can do this development of the skillful capacities, skillful deeds, activities, because I can assure you can do it. Something like that. Very interesting way of putting it. So it is not that merely you are talking and asking others to do while you are not doing it. Rather, Buddha himself has implemented it to the fullest capacity, and he's quite sure it can be done. So he's assuring, okay, I'm telling it to do because I know it can be done.
Thank you, Bhante. Much merit.
Yeah.
We have another question. Dear Bhante, during the day between my sitting meditation or walking meditation, during day-to-day activities, I try to practice metta or have metta in my mind, or it is tasks that I need to be careful. Example, driving or cutting vegetables. I practice mindfulness, and my mind is guarded without unwholesome thoughts. It is becoming almost happening automatically. Where can I read a sutta where Buddha has spoken more about it to help my practice?
Yeah, as we just discussed, so maintaining kind of a wholesome stream of thoughts is useful, because otherwise habitually the mind can shift it into an unwholesome pattern of thinking. So that has to be avoided. So that's why typically we are, say, encouraging to maintain kind of a guardian practice like metta, buddhanusati, something like that. But later, as you are maturing in the mindfulness practice, the vipassana practice, so you may start understanding, okay, if mind is occupied with something, it's become kind of a burden. So that's what highlighted in the Dvedaha Sutta. So kind of a gradual progress is highlighted there. So what Buddha first decided, or the Bodhisattva first decided, was to categorize the thoughts. Okay, these are wholesome thoughts, these are unwholesome thoughts. So that is very much a very initial categorization. And when he come across unwholesome thought, so he gave a kind of a little warning. Okay, I better avoid thinking in that, because it can become a wrong habit. It can be harmful to me. It can be harmful to another. So kind of a discouragement is given to the wholesome side, unwholesome side. But with the wholesome side, he has given certain encouragement. So now mind has become fairly equipped or occupied with the wholesome thoughts. But later he came another level. Okay, if I'm continuing or occupying the mind constantly with the wholesome thoughts, again now mind become a little crowded. So in a way we can see, so it's a kind of a sensitivity of the mind become improved now. Previously the sensitivity is very less. So because it's a combination of wholesome and unwholesome, and majority maybe even unwholesome. But now once the unwholesome side is fairly abandoned and wholesome thoughts are fairly improved, so the mind's capacity, mind's sensitivity, the mindfulness has greatly improved. And there you understand, okay, these thoughts in a way, if I am willfully, intentionally thinking, it can be a burden. So let me keep the mind very quiet, but with full awareness. It is not that you are keeping the mind quiet and become lethargic and drowsy and ultimately go to sleep. Rather, keep the mind very quiet, even free from thinking. So this is in a way, we can say the vipassana practice. So understanding kind of, because just doing it temporarily using some other practice is also possible. So that's why if we have to go to detail, so second jhana is where you are completely abandoning vitakka and vichara and keeping the mind utterly quiet, even free from even minor kind of oscillations, while keeping the very quiet. But if we consider the vipassana practice, so you are understanding the true nature of these thoughts. You understand the conditioned nature of these thoughts, either wholesome, either unwholesome. They are having the qualities of arising, changing, and passing away, arising, changing, and passing away, arising, changing, and passing away. So this is a kind of an insight that what one would be developing. So when those kinds of insights are being developed, now you may find, okay, no point of purposely occupying the mind, I better keep the mind unassociated. I better keep the mind free from any grasping, because the non-grasping mind become more and more, say, frictionless, more and more subtle, more and more pleasing, more and more kind of, how to say, equanimous. So the mind's capacity become more and more grown. So the decision is taken to minimize the intentions. To minimize intentions, and then you are keeping the mind fairly quiet and even free from attachment, even free from grasping. So this is another advanced way of keeping the mind fully aware. If you don't want to think, okay, you are keeping the mind free from thinking. If you want to think, yes, I can think. So this kind of a capacity being encouraged. And even in the Didha Vitakka Sutta, Vitakka Santana Sutta, and maybe Vipassana related suttas. So this kind of a, mastering the mind, mastering of thinking is encouraged. So on such situation, Buddha say, okay, now you have the full capacity. Okay, whatever craving related thoughts, now you are abandoning. Whatever, say, unwholesome thoughts, you are abandoning. You are, if necessary, you are cultivating only the necessary thinking. Otherwise, it's not necessary to think, you are keeping it very quiet. So in this way, now one is abandoning slowly, diluting slowly those latent tendencies. So it's a kind of recognizing inner traits and slowly abandoning them, so that mind become more and more purified. So the third statement, purify one's mind, cleansing one's mind. So that is what we are into. So it's a long practice, but it is available. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante. Now I would like to invite Nalinka to present a question. You can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now, Shalika?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Bhante, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
This was actually a poem that wrote itself the other day. Shall I read it out?
Sure. You have to recite it, with the melody then.
I'll try my best. It's called Afraid of Waking. Seeds sown over millennia, I cannot seem to find a beginning or what will even be an end to this hefty load of mine. So I soaked in mists of wonder, ran through jungles loft and light, only to find that I was dreaming, and it's really not worth this fright. So I looked at the breath, which also dissipates, to only inform gently, silence is in sight. There you rose, O wondrous art of nothing but singular grace. Stay effortless, choicelessness, till only soundless remains. That's it, Bhante.
Yeah, last statement, till only what remains?
Till only soundless remains.
Soundless.
Yeah.
That means silence in a way.
Beyond silence, no?
Yeah, soundless. You mean the soundless, right? So I didn't get the last statement, the word. Till only
soundless.
Soundless. Yeah, I mean, mind become very quiet in a way. So that's why, I mean, very interesting. Thank you for contribution, Nalinka. So this inner silence is something that we need to encourage. And sometimes problem is that we feel it is very boring, because we are used to the activities, we are used to the excitement. we are used to oscillations in the mind, but the aim where the Buddha is mentioning is, as you mentioned in this beautiful poem, is that very calm, relaxed silence. So the mind has that capacity. Instead of turbulence, having very quietude. So there's a very interesting verse available in the Tuataka Sutta. Majhe yata samuddassa umino jayati tito. So that is, as in the deep sea, there is no tide, there is no waves, but it is completely still. But it is very, very deep. So that you can see the deep sea, even though it is very deep, it is very quiet, very silent, and free from tide, free from waves. So that is the kind of direction that Buddha is pointing out. So how to reach that kind of deep silence? It doesn't mean that one is in a trance, but one is in a full awareness. As you have mentioned in this verse, it is effortless awareness, kind of an effortless awareness, because that is only possible when the mind is free from the defilements, because otherwise we have to use either effort to subside defilements, suppress defilements, or either we have to use a lot of concentration to subside or suppress defilements. But if the defilements are not available, so the Arahant's mind, as indicated in this particular verse, is very much like that deep sea, deep ocean. It is completely free, completely effortless, very quiet, free from tide, free from waves, but very deep. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for allowing me to share. Thanks,
Yeah.
Shalika.
Bhante, I have a question. You mentioned that when you are doing a Kamma, like we have to be like mindful, like in the all three stages. When you are like starting it, and then during while performing the action, and at the end. So if someone be mindful and performing like a unwholesome action, and during performing, and he understand, oh, this is wrong, I'm doing, and then he stopped right away without continuing it, and is that person will complete the Kamma, or like how that affect, or someone who basically fully complete the action?
Yeah. So say you start talking and you start blaming someone, and in between, say, you understood, okay, I should not speak like this, and you apply break and you stop. So what would be the result? And if you continue blaming and if you get into fighting, so what would be the result?
Yeah.
So quite obvious. So basically, at least at one moment, if I understood, okay, the way I speak, way I talk, may be completely wrong, or I am with a wrong or misunderstanding. So the other person has given enough reasons. So his mistake, or I thought as a mistake. So if in that situation, if I have the capacity to stop the continuation of this particular activity, so that means I am giving kind of a corrective measure rather than continuing with something wrong. So I am stopping it. So definitely I need to do that. So that's why Buddha asked us to maintain kind of a mindfulness, maintain kind of a reflective awareness. So even when we are engaged with the activity, so am I doing it properly? Is it useful? Is it beneficial as I thought? So likewise, it's a kind of a, as you said, it's quite necessary thing. But interesting thing is now, if we are really guarded with morality, so basically the moral precepts give us a very, very safe passage for us to work. don't do killing, don't do stealing, don't involve in sexual misconduct, don't lie, and all these things. It's a kind of a very marvelous kind of passage, a safety passage, a kind of a direction given to the mind. And then we know, okay, I am in this particular passage, in this safe margin. So if you are working within that safe margin, you can say, so I am safe. So before that, before you are starting the activities, okay, you can easily put into the criteria and see whether this within, I'm going to work within this proper margin. If the answer is yes, okay, you are continuing there. So there also I'm doing a kind of a slight investigation. Am I crossing the margin or am I within the proper margin? Something like that. Because, you know, sometimes even though we start with proper intention to talk with someone, to deal with some activity, there may be certain shifts can happen in between. Say you have seen something dropped on the road, and you might think, okay, I better take it and keep it aside so that another one may not steal it. So while you are taking it, probably you understood, okay, it may be, I mean, very wealthy thing, and maybe a wallet, it may be something valuable. So now the previous thought is not operative right now. There may be kind of a, you know, greed. There may be a kind of a stealing thought can happen while you are engaged with the activity. So that you have to properly recognize. So if you recognize that, then probably you can abandon that wrong thought. So you can instruct yourself, I don't want to steal it. It belongs to someone else. I came here just to protect it. I just came here to take it and give it to the proper owner rather than keeping it with myself. So likewise, I have to navigate, I have to instruct myself because the mind is very cheaty in a way. Even though it starts with proper attention, proper direction, in between, probably it can shift to a wrong direction. Therefore, the tracks can change. So I have to keep in guard because still the unwholesome roots are operating within the mind. Previously it was influenced by the wholesome roots, but now there could be a situation the unwholesome roots can come to the picture. So that's why, I mean, till we are completely free from all these unwholesome roots, so we can't give the 100% assurance to our activities. So we have to always have a kind of a guard, always have a kind of a monitoring process available so that we are continuing our path properly, continuing our path with the wholesome side continuously.
Okay, Bhante. So basically, like, you know, if you compare the whole Kamma, wholesome, especially like if it is a wholesome Kamma, you never stop, you continue the Kamma. But if it is like an unwholesome one, you know, having anger, something like that, you know, or I should stop it right there. So basically, at least, you know, he's safeguarding, you know, myself, and then not to proceed that the Kamma will be not that like a much impact as a performing the full Kamma, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So because you are not done it to the full capacity, at least beginning, before you get into, you know, now say you start abusing a person, you start speaking, blaming a person. So that is one level. So if that level, if you understood that, stop, so probably the next level would be maybe harming that person, attacking that person. So you have completely given up that very harmful, the grave kind of Kamma, because at this level, this less harmful level, so you are able to stop yourself.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah.
Chandima, actually, she asked whether she can share a poem that her daughter has written. So,
Okay. So we can give a few minutes.
Thero Saranai Bhante, when Nilanka shared a poem, I thought when my daughter was 9 years old in grade 4, she wrote this poem for a competition. It's about mindful mind.
Right.
So it says, mindful mind is like a cloud serene, calm, bright. As you move from topic to topic, the cloud wanders around, stormy, upset, dull. You take a deep breath, slowly, steadily, silently, letting all wild thoughts out. Feeling that cold breath permeates through the air, hearing the gust wind sway and sway. You feel better now, just in one place, just in one thought, calm, quiet, still. Without mindfulness, your mind becomes infuriated, clouds blowing and blowing, the trees sway fast from side to side, one falls over, now calm down, take a deep breath and let it go smoothly, let all evil thoughts out. Be in the present moment, precious moment, then things will be just right, fine, nice.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. So actually how the kid has beautifully recognized the capacity of the mind, the benefit of the mindfulness practice. Very interesting. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing. In a way, very encouraging to all of us. So even though the activity of mindfulness, the exercises are very, very straightforward. So we need to implement that. We need to continue that again and again. And that repeated practice is the key, actually helping us to arrive this kind of silence. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Chandima.
Any more, Shalika, or shall we wind up? If you have any notice.
There are no hands raised, and there are no questions in the chat. So that means we can wind up the session. So
we'll wind up the session. Thank you very much for
Thank you so much, Bhante. Thank you so much, merits to you. And I wish you good health, happiness, and a long life. And thank you all for your participation, and hope to see you in another month. Thero and Sarnai.
Yeah, Thero and Sarnai. Yeah.